When I'm in Holland, all I miss is everything about New Zealand. And I know that when I move back to New Zealand, there's going to be things I miss about Holland. And I will never feel 100% complete here or there. And it's like a heavy burden, but also you've experienced the best of both worlds. So it's this balance between, you'll always be missing something, but you'll always have had experienced it, which is beautiful and painful. Yeah. My name is Cindy van Sleeuwen, or van Sleeuwen in Dutch, and I live in The Pipe in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The Pipe is a very lively place. I live on a street where there's a big market and there's beautiful people down there, so every time I walk to my bike I always say hello to like 6 store owners or something. It's always nice, friendly. I've been in the Netherlands for 7 years and I haven't been home to New Zealand for 6 of those. My parents are both Dutch and they lived here together for 10 years. My father had originally grown up in Australia. The Netherlands was very full at one stage and they were paying people to leave, basically. In Australia wanted people, they wanted workers, so when my dad was 1 year old, his family packed them up and took them to Australia. And he grew up there until he was 13, and his mother was diagnosed terminally and she wanted to die back in the Netherlands. So they moved back. And my father, of course, how can you not love Australasia, wanted to go back to Australia. But my parents didn't have enough visa points to get in. They married for visa points. Still not enough. And so they ended up in New Zealand, a place they'd never been, on the other side of the world. Crazy, 40 years ago. Unbelievable. I'm not allowed to know this story if I'm gonna do it. Okay, so how my parents met is actually a funny story that they have never told me, and I heard it from my grandmother. So nowadays you have Tinder and Hinge and whatever you want. Back then you used to put an ad in the paper. So my mum placed an advertisement, and this is the way my grandma tells it. My mum placed an advertisement, and after a few days, a week or something, they had a big pile of envelopes. So my mother and her mother were going through all of these envelopes and selected a few. You of course send a photo with a letter, and my dad was one of them. So they wrote together to him and asked him if he would like to meet her, and to which he replied, of course, like, that's why he sent the letter. This comes to the part where I do know, this is what my parents told me, is Dad got off the train with a bunch of flowers and they both knew. So yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah. The rest is history. And then I came along and ruined things. No. And then I came along and they settled. I didn't settle. Yeah. We settled down in Central Hawke's Bay, in a farm halfway between Waipaoa and the Ruahine Ranges. My favourite spot in New Zealand would definitely just be the farm that I grew up on. Like, the Ruahine Ranges are just stunning, and my father always used to take me up there, and we used to take the walk up to Sunrise Hut, and yeah, it's always beautiful with the wood pigeons and the call of the tui and everything. Yeah. I miss feeling the soil beneath my bare feet and the smell of the forest, seeing flex bushes everywhere, and one of the things I miss the most is rivers. Oh. in the Ruahine Ranges, you can follow the river right to where it starts, and it's just the cold water, and you know it's clean up there, and I miss the rivers. Yeah. So when I'm finally allowed back in New Zealand, when I finally make my way there, I will just chill with my parents for a couple of weeks, like not leave their side, hug them constantly. It's been too long. Something I've learned about myself while being here in the Netherlands is actually how to love myself, which is huge. Yeah, in New Zealand I had some self-confidence issues, and to come here I had a giant life event, and it really threw me on my knees. I barely knew who I was anymore, and it really gave me the opportunity to pick myself up and look after myself, and I invested a lot of energy in myself. I gave myself what I needed, and it was a process. It lasted, it's ongoing, I think. I think you always need to take a step back and, who am I now? Do I love who I am? I got to that place when you get to that place for the first time in your life, it is otherworldly. It's really, yeah. And then the sky becomes the limit. That's when I started studying. I did a bachelor in psychology, and one, I loved myself, and two, I knew I had the strength to accomplish my dreams, and that I feel like that is what Holland has given me. I don't know if you believe in fate or everything happens for a reason, but I definitely do. And while I feel a very intense connection to New Zealand, I also feel that if you take her as a spiritual energy, she wanted me to come to the Netherlands and be here and find myself and discover my roots. And discovering my roots really helped me figure out who I am as an individual. I actually was here getting a tattoo from Rosie Edwards, and a week or so after, I went to my grandparents' place, and as women do, my grandma and I were going through her jewellery box, and she pulls out this green pendant, and I'm like, Grandma, do you know what that is? And she's like, no, I've got no idea, like some old thing. And it was this. It was a pounamu with a marae cast in silver at the top. In the next session with Rosie, I told her, straight after I got the tattoo, I found the pounamu. And she was not surprised at all. She's heard like spiritual connections. But I felt exactly where I was supposed to be at that moment. But in saying that, while I feel like I have needed to be here to accomplish all these things, I am definitely feeling the pull to go home now. I feel like my purpose here is done, and now it's time to go home. When I do go back to New Zealand, and when I finish studying, I haven't decided exactly what I want to do yet. There's a possibility I will go into medicine, start again. Otherwise I will work either in neuroscientific research or go back to psychology. Haven't decided yet, but I just want to be home. I really just want to be home. So at the top it says, I sit atop the mast pondering, and basically it's about a poem I wrote a few years ago. The poem itself is a guy on a ship, and he's on top of the mast, and he's constantly looking for land. You've been at sea for so long, all you want to do is get to land and settle your feet down into the land. Land is all you're looking for. once you're on land, all you want to do is go back to sea. And that's exactly how I feel, how I used to feel anyway, about New Zealand and Holland. When I'm in Holland, all I would miss is everything about New Zealand. And I know that when I move back to New Zealand, there's going to be things I miss about Holland. And I will never feel 100% complete here or there. And it's like a heavy burden, but also you've experienced the best of both worlds. So it's this balance between, you'll always be missing something, but you'll always have had experienced it, which is beautiful and painful. Yeah, here we go. I sit atop the mast, searching for solid ground, the stability everyone aboard this ship longs for. Secretly, I hope that no land shows itself to me. I quickly grow tiresome of its permanency. In all truth, I love it here, with this crew, different on every journey, yet fortunate enough to be led by the same dedicated captain. Some you grow to love, some you'd be better off without, but that's it, that's everything. Some days I sit atop the mast, the sun shines, the salty breeze caresses my joy, and the world would not be more beautiful. Some days I sit atop the mast, and the rain pours, the harsh gales launch droplets like bullets into everything I love, but still I remain on top of the mast. The latter of which makes me miss land, but the good days I sit atop the mast. I sit atop the mast, searching for solid ground, the stability everyone aboard this ship longs for. Myself more so than anyone here. I hope land soon delights my eyes with a glimpse of its glory. I long for its permanency, the only place that can ever truly be a home. I loathe it here among this crew. The same journey all the time, and although blessed with a competent captain, he is not the one I wish to sail these seas with. Some I have grown to love, some I despise so much, and I despise myself for feeling that way. So that's it, my last journey. Some days the sun still shines, some days I sit atop the mast, the cold so miserable, the wind swirls in such a fury I can barely hold on, the latter of which makes me forget the former completely. Those bitter, long days, I sit atop the mast, I see land. Whoa. Made me cold. Yeah.
How's that for you?
Reading
Reading it?
that was intense. Whenever I read my poems again, I've sort of brought back to the place where I wrote them initially, and it brings up so much, and it's way more beautiful than I said it initially, like of how you really, there's so much good and so much bad, and it's different every day of how much you miss home or how much you love it here. And sometimes when the homesickness is really bad, it's weeks or even months of just hating it here and wishing you were back in New Zealand. But then you can also go weeks or months of loving it here so much and wondering, if I go back to New Zealand, will I like it there? Have things changed so much? Will I still connect? It's tough. You feel like your soul is in New Zealand, and you feel like your task is here. And sometimes, I don't know. It calls you, New Zealand calls you home, and the voices are just getting louder, and it's just time.
Let's go home, man.
Yeah, let's go home. Oh my god. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Feijoas, honestly. every 3 months, I dream about feijoas. I'm not even kidding. Like, the whole dream is focused on feijoas. Like, I miss them so much. You cannot get feijoas here, so yeah, I just miss them. Yeah.